After 3 months of separation, my illness resurfaced. The dream that had not bothered me for a long time returned to haunt me. In the dream, I was with that gloomy man, sharing intimate moments, yet he held a gun at my side. He expressed his love for me in pain, then his eyes reddened as he pulled the trigger, but no bullet came out. My dagger, however, did not hesitate to press against his neck. In the dream, he died with a smile on his face, as if he had fulfilled his wish, asking me to take him home. My chest felt a deep agony that woke me up, struggling to breathe. It is strange that this dream has tormented me for over 3 years, leaving my heart shattered even after I woke up, causing me to repeatedly fall into the pain of losing a loved one. Therefore, I sought help from a psychologist and confessed my love for a person in my dreams, named Guya. After hypnosis and medication proved ineffective, the doctor suggested I try dating to see if I could move on. If not, it would be good to detox from this feeling. It was then that Jiangdong appeared. He resembled my dream man perfectly. I also believed that he was the Guya from my dreams. Their faces were similar, their voices alike, even the casual curl of their lips matched. At the bar, he was drunkenly leaning in a corner, gripping my shirt tightly, asking if I could take him home. That moment felt as if it spanned several lifetimes. I thought my dream Guya had finally stepped out of my dreams. I took him home and watched over him on the sofa for the entire night. But when he woke up and met my sorrowful gaze, he was surprisingly cheerful. He laughed so hard it shook his shoulders. Is this a bit disappointing because nothing happened? After that, he looked at my shirt's collar. Next time, lower the collar. I might not sleep with you so soon. Even though he was being unreasonable, fate still caused me to lower my dignity in front of him. At first, my love for him was overwhelming and uncontrollable. I will be present during the bright red sunset, worrying about whether he will stay close to me or leave. At some point in the deep of the night, I will awaken, caressing his neck, reassured by the absence of new injuries, allowing me to sleep peacefully again. I will transfer all my debts to Koda onto him, treating him with utmost tenderness. I do not resent him for the problems he has created. While he is in the hospital, I care for him tirelessly, fearing that a single blink from him might cause him to disappear like in a dream. He often gazes at me in a daze, muttering about why he couldn't meet me a bit earlier. At that moment, I am unaware of the deeper meaning behind his words, all the way until our date on Valentine's Day. Jiangdong, who has always been modest, suddenly raises his voice to invite me out. He arrives at a fancy restaurant, holding a sincere bouquet of flowers. Walking slowly, his bright eyes attract the attention of many female students passing by, and some even discreetly take photos of him. He glances at the person taking a sneaky picture, smiles, and says, "Take a nice shot." After saying this, he leans down and gives me a long kiss on the lips. I feel something within my chest pounding, as if it wants to jump out. Amidst the noise, he asks the photographer for the picture, eager to share it with his circle of friends. I think, has he finally begun to take this incredibly wild relationship? However, even after all of that, he seems somewhat uneasy, facing my joy and excitement while he often stumbles over his words with me, frequently checking his phone. It isn't until he receives a call labeled that he suddenly sits up straight, glancing out the window. I tell him to go take care of business if there's something happening, but he hangs up, affectionately smiling at me and saying, "Today is the most important thing to do with you." After saying this, he grabs food and feeds me in an endearing way. Perhaps he still doesn't realize as he decorates my plate with salad and feeds me, then picks up a napkin to wipe my mouth, even though my lips are perfectly clean. A sudden, uneasy feeling arose, and indeed, right after a series of intimate actions, the phone began to ring wildly. Jiangdong once again forced a strained smile, then pretended to excuse himself, saying he had matters at the company to attend to. I laughed and told him to hurry back, but he looked at me with a complex expression, hesitated for a few seconds, and then hurriedly turned and left. I was foolish enough to follow him, and saw not far downstairs a beautiful girl standing there. From that angle, it captured all the intimate actions between me and Jiangdong in the restaurant. A thought struck me, making me shudder. This date with Jiangdong surely wasn't meant for this girl to see, was it? Jiangdong tried to leave quickly, but slowed down when he approached the girl named Lam Xie, putting on an impatient demeanor. He told Lam Xie he was on a date and urged her to speak up if she had something to say. Lam Xie looked extremely pained, asking why he would casually trample on himself. She said, "Even if I don't agree to be your girlfriend, you can't just randomly find someone to degrade yourself. You are not worthy of those who care about you." Jiangdong was silent for 2 seconds, and his stillness felt like a judgment against me, confirming that I was indeed the one he randomly sought. After a moment, feeling too embarrassed, he retorted angrily, "How do you know I'm not truly in love with her?" Lam Xie managed a bittersweet smile. "Don't you know what love feels like?" After saying that, she grabbed Jiangdong's shirt, stood on her toes, and kissed him. The kiss was deep and intense, leaving Zhang Dong momentarily stunned. When Lam Xie finally pulled back, she said, "Confusion and chaos, this is real emotion. So, Zhang Dong, even if I don't agree to be with you, you shouldn't just whimsically seek someone else to degrade yourself." At that moment, I hid behind a pillar, unable to hold back my tears. That's when I realized I wasn't destined to be with him. I was merely someone he randomly found to provoke Lam Xie. He resented her for being flirtatious, which is why he approached me. He had chosen me in the bar, claiming my cold exterior made him feel happier. He expected me to notice him in the bar. I really did pick him up and bring him home. I was hiding behind a pole like a thief, watching them argue fiercely before they embraced each other passionately. They resembled the main characters in a love-hate story, while I was just a bystander. My heart felt shattered, and I decided to break up. Yet, I wasn't sure if it was an illusion, as the suffocating feeling caused by coda had significantly lessened over the past 3 years. Or maybe it was like what the doctor said about detoxing. Zhang Dong didn't return until late that day. When I checked his friends' circles, that romantic photo was no longer there. I ran into him a few days later. Zhang Dong appeared weary and worn, as if he hadn't seen me for ages. And he enveloped me in his arms and kissed me on the head. He closed his eyes and continued kissing me gently. I wondered if he truly understood the confusion in this kiss that Lam Xie mentioned. I pushed him away, and he opened his eyes, looking startled with a hint of uncertainty. My chest began to ache subtly. This time, I realized the suffocating feeling in my chest had indeed disappeared. Since he had taken advantage of me before, using him as a way to overcome my addiction wasn't too unreasonable. The bar was extremely lively. Most of the people who didn't go were just curious to see the spectacle. They watched him degrade like a dog eagerly responding to the wrong name. When I entered the room, they were checking the time on their watches. Damn, it's so less than half an hour. Is this the right flight? Dong is indeed such a slowpoke. Are all women that shallow these days? Do they really just look at appearances? Teasing her like that, and she still is willing. Zhang Dong remained in a dark corner, not saying a word, half of his face hidden in shadow. In that moment, our eyes met, and the pain appeared like drowning misery. Perhaps my involuntary reddening eyes caught Zhang Dong's attention. He smiled at me before filling 3 big glasses with liquor, as if to say, "Finish it all here, and then I will forgive you." As he spoke, his face glowed under the light. Looking at him like that, it felt as if Koda really did step out from my dreams. I don't understand why he turned to look at me. Was it because he was arguing with Lam Xie, or did he genuinely recognize my good qualities? Regardless, these thoughts aren't important. What matters is that the suffocating feeling is nearly gone. A smile flickers at the corner of my mouth in an instant. Oh my, is this joy overwhelming? Zhang Dong, would you like to share some secrets with me? Your coach is certainly obedient. His biting words didn't affect my stirred emotions at all. I lifted my drink and downed it in one go. First glass, self-appreciation, cheers to myself for being persistent and not giving up easily. Laughter erupted, along with a teasing voice. Oh dear, it's so cheap, just shouting and being chased away. Zhang Dong's friends poked fun at me, and while he didn't say anything, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly in amusement. I took a deep breath, feeling the heavy weight in my chest finally lift. Therefore, I raised my second glass and looked directly at Zhang Dong. Second glass, cheers to Zhang Dong. You treat me like an actor in this play, not as a person. This time, my quiet remark turned into loud laughter. Oh dear, so cheap, ha ha ha, and truly loud-mouthed. Zhang Dong, since I picked the number first. Don't throw away this thing you're tired of. The guys also want to experience a bit. Zhang Dong frowned slightly, displeased by the comment. Yet I confidently finished my second drink. My chest felt lighter than ever, completely at ease, almost like I had never seen Koda before. I was a bit dazed. I smirked and staggered over. I grasped Zhang Dong's hand, carefully placing it in front of my eyes. His palm was soft and smooth, certainly never having held a gun. However, there was a faint scar on his arm. It was too shallow. Touching it didn't feel right. Koda's scars should be deeper. The surrounding noise made it seem like I was acting too recklessly, desperately craving Zhang Dong's physical presence. Zhang Dong rarely showed a teasing expression. He gently patted me. He said, "You're drunk, Nam Tien, don't rush. We should go home now." After speaking, he stood up to support me amid the loud chaos. Once again, I stopped him, my gaze intensely fixed on his wide-open collar. After confirming once more, it became clear that she was experiencing a rebirth. The crowd's disdain was palpable, and with curious yet skeptical eyes, I slowly pulled back the collar of Zhang Dong. No, there was no mole on his collarbone, nor were there any laser removal marks. Zhang Dong took a cold breath, his voice noticeably hoarser. Nam Tien, we can't stay here. Amidst the whistling, I became suddenly clear-minded. Zhang Dong was definitely not Guya. He had maximized his effectiveness as a detox, after which he was of no use to me. Without warning, I pulled away and picked up the third glass of liquor, and Jiang Dong finally revealed a reluctant expression, raising his hand to stop me. "You can't drink anymore, you're drunk." Before he could finish, he was taken aback by my surprisingly clear eyes. I smiled at him. "This is the third glass, just to commemorate our brief entanglement." The liquor tilted, spilling beneath Jiang Dong's feet. "Jiang Dong, you act very similarly. But you are ultimately not, my Guya." In the terrified look in his eyes, I let go. The shards of glass scattered in all directions, similar to a shattered, vivid dream. When Jiang Dong realized that the name Guya could truly exist, his expression darkened ominously. He threw the glass away, kicked at the person who was teasing him, and said, "Nam Tien, now you either admit defeat or I won't let it slide." I cast a glance at the messy ground, smiled, and replied, "Don't you dare, Jiang. If you don't hold it against me, you're already not like my Guya." However, when my Guya gets mad, he doesn't throw glasses and act childish like this. He might even get provoked but wouldn't say a word, just directly aim and shoot, and wouldn't forget to add a silencer. After saying that, I pretended to hold a gun, aiming straight at his head. Bang! The veins on Jiang Dong's forehead throbbed, and I gave him a final glance before smiling and turning to leave. The chaotic noise behind no longer concerned me, and I wiped the tear stains from my face. "Goodbye, Guya. If you have decisively walked away, then regardless of the circumstances, you shouldn't cause any more trouble." After that night, my life returned to tranquility. I no longer dreamed of Koda, and during moments of idleness, I found it hard to avoid feeling lost. Jiang Dong sent a message through someone else who told me, "I've never seen him so angry. He has even cut off Lam Xie's phone because he's determined to take you home. If you approach him gently like before, you can consider your troubles over." I directly stopped that person, as I truly had no more troubles. My heart no longer ached daily, and I was much more relaxed while working. The theater troupe was also beginning to rehearse a new script, and I was paired with a popular male actor, Thin Can. He was exceptionally diligent during practice, and the troupe spared no effort in creating a new script for him. However, as soon as I held that script, my hair stood on end. It was a revival story where the male and female leads were adversaries, whose psychological defenses deteriorated over a series of playful provocations. Their genuine feelings were concealed behind deceptive words, trapped in a struggle between love and desire. In the end, the male lead brandished a gun aimed at the female lead. That's right. In a gunfight, there are no bullets. The girl's dagger cut across the boy's throat, and he smiled, accepting defeat. "In the next life, you have to take me home," he said. An invisible hand suddenly gripped my throat, the pain rising like a tide, submerging me within it. "Is this male lead named Koda?" I inquired. Just then, Thinkin entered. He walked through the door, with light shining behind him, making him appear as if carved from a golden frame. A group holding scripts was discussing something while he politely nodded in my direction before naturally sitting on the couch beside me. "The name Koda isn't bad, so let's use it," he suggested. In a brief glance from his almond-shaped eyes, I felt a fleeting sense of illusion, as if he had come for me. After speaking, he and the director continued their conversation, not stopping until his assistant brought tea and fruit. While one side examined the details, he casually picked up the teacup and placed it in front of me, as if everything was normal. I noticed that his profile didn't resemble that of the character Guoya at all, which gradually threw me off balance. It was only until the low voice of Shin Qian reached me that I regained my focus. He addressed the director, saying, "Then let's try acting first, if Miss Nam Tien doesn't have any objections." After speaking, he turned to look at me, his eyes questioning. I collected myself, thinking about how the test scene would be the intimate farewell moment. The director wanted to see how we would perform together. Acting well was important, but without chemistry, it wouldn't attract viewers, so I had no reason to refuse. However, since it was our first meeting, acting out an intimate scene felt awkward. The director cleared the set, and then Shin Qian, following the norm, asked me if I had any reservations. I indicated that I had read the script and was ready. Shin Qian nodded, then lifted his hand to remove his outer jacket. Underneath was black, accentuating his slender waist, with 2 buttons undone. His pale collarbone combined with the dark fabric created a seductive appearance. As he undid his shirt, he looked up. Suddenly, before I could prepare myself, I felt a burning intensity in his gaze that seemed to threaten. Was this what it felt like to act out a romance like in the legends? The person who had just been charming and polite was now replaced by someone fierce and ruthless, abandoning all pretense in performance. He took steps closer, staring intently at me, a mix of desperation and despair flickering in his eyes, ultimately giving way to a reluctant surrender as he embraced me tightly. He turned me around, pressed me against the wall, wrapped his arms around me from behind, searched my body but finding no resistance. Then he regrettably nibbled at the back of my neck. I winced in pain and turned my head, accidentally bumping my cheek against his lips. He took this chance to close his eyes, lost in agony, kissing randomly on my hair, eyebrows, and nose, finally catching the corner of my mouth with fervor. I cried out in pain, and when I opened my mouth, I felt timid. Are you wanting to resort to violence? I knew that. Based on the dream's scene, his gun was about to rest against my hip. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. Thinkin lifted his head again, intensely gazing deeply into my eyes, gently using his finger to wipe away the tears on my face. Get that cursed fate away, he said, as he spoke while taking the weapon and tossing the gun into the bathtub. The gun sank to the bottom of the water, and Thinkin smiled, a relaxed and beautiful grin. He then leaned down, passionately and dramatically kissing me like there was no tomorrow. The rehearsal made the director forget to call for a stop. And it was only when Thinkin suddenly pulled back and started cursing him that he seemed to wake up from a dream, cheerfully exclaiming, "Great, great, very great. This emotion is amazing. But, Teacher Thin, why did you suddenly change the script? Shouldn't you have shot first? And then Nam Tien killed you?" Thinkin regained his composed demeanor, handed me a handkerchief, and began to adjust his shirt. After a moment, he spoke in a low voice. "Nam's death like this makes others uneasy." I paused mid-wipe, unable to believe what I heard as I looked at him. After countless nights of awakening, I felt the same resentment. I resented Koda for forcing me to kill him, burdening me with that guilt, yet I buried that resentment deep in my heart, never letting it show. Sensing my look, Thinkin turned his head. "Am I wrong, Miss Nam Tien?" he asked earnestly. I didn't have a chance to respond to his question when loud noises came from outside, revealing Zhang Dong angrily rushing in without anyone being able to stop him. He was my ex-boyfriend, so the staff didn't put forth their full effort to prevent him. His expression was intimidating as he grabbed my wrist. "Did you just call him Koda?" Thinkin had just finished adjusting his cuff. "Koda is just a character in the play," he calmly said, extending his hand towards Zhang Dong. "Nice to meet you, I'm Thin Can." Zhang Dong held onto my hand tightly, arrogantly ignoring Thin Can's outstretched hand. Thin Can frowned slightly and tapped his elbow lightly against Zhang Dong's arm. Zhang Dong momentarily winced in pain and released my hand to clutch his arm. "I hope you can respect my leading lady," Thin Can said, while his fingers brushed against my lips, wiping away any remaining lipstick. Zhang Dong's eyes seemed to be on the verge of breaking, but he still wanted to talk to me once more. He said he consulted my psychiatrist, knowing I was unwell. I have no idea why the doctor was talking to him. Overall, his explanation of the situation was somewhat vague. He believes that my love for him resulted in not having him, which led me to imagine a person like him in my dreams, giving that person the name Koda. In my dreams, Koda loves me intensely to the point of dying and coming back to life, always unwavering in that love. He thinks that my illness is due to him, so he feels a certain guilt. But it seems more like a sense of self-satisfaction. He says, "Nam Tien, it's my fault. I didn't realize I would hurt you so deeply." I studied him, unable to figure out what his issue was. He seemed heartbroken as he pulled me closer. "In the past, you would always touch my neck at night, and now I realize that it was because I was hurt in your dreams. Nam Tien, while I was unaware, you must have been enduring great pain." I withdrew from his touch, and he awkwardly continued, "You blame me, I know, but at that time, I thought we both understood our feelings were just a joke. I never expected you to love me so deeply. If you had shown a little more weakness, I wouldn't have hurt you at all." I stared at him, feeling a bit panicked. I wondered if Koda in my dreams would have a similar expression when I stopped dreaming of him. This twisted dream felt surreal, and after a moment of reflection, I suddenly encountered a glitch regarding him. Zhang Dong continued to indulge in self-pity. "Nam Tien, I was wrong. You've used your shoulder to heal from the hurt I caused." Calling him Koda, "I won't let you down again. Please don't be angry with me. I won't blame you anymore, okay?" This was the first time Zhang Dong opened up with me. And after speaking, he looked at me filled with hope. After a moment of silence, I unexpectedly burst into laughter. The corners of Zhang Dong's mouth involuntarily curved upward. I casually asked, "Did the doctor tell you when I started dreaming of Koda?" He seemed a bit confused. "No." After saying that, his expression revealed deep regret. "But we've known each other for over 6 months. Haven't you been in pain most of that time?" He was still lost in his own pleasant feelings, while I slowly pulled out my medical records from my phone and presented them to him. "After 2.5 years, Zhang Dong. I dreamt of Koda again after 3.5 years. That scoundrel Koda has tormented me for 3.5 years. Luckily, I encountered a man like him who is just like his twin." I looked directly into his eyes and spoke slowly. "I'm using you and I'm done with him." Zhang Dong stood there in shock, and I could even see his cheeks flush. "Don't be angry," I said calmly. "You know, you haven't been genuine at all. For more than half a year." He would call me just to leave. My clothes and finances have always been generous, and he ended up becoming a catalyst for his feelings for his little sweetheart. No matter what it was, he still wasn't genuine. I helped him remember clearly that I didn't owe him anything, then told him that logically and emotionally he shouldn't come looking for me anymore, and this mutual exploitation should dissolve easily. Jong Dong stood there dumbfounded. I walked quite far away, then heard him burst out laughing. It was a light mockery that turned into loud laughter. Just like that day on the phone, my mother said he was both arrogant and pitiable. The following days were much calmer, with a sense of emptiness replacing the feeling in my chest. Fortunately, the main troupe officially rehearsed, and a bit of that emptiness was completely shattered by the crazy Thin Can. He often caught everyone off guard by altering the script unexpectedly, turning a romantic entanglement into a pursuit of love despite hardships. Teasing became a hallmark of the early script stages, and he wouldn't even stick to the script. He spoke and acted unexpectedly, making the young Nam Tien feel an unexpected stir. He really managed it well. Every line he suddenly delivered off-script left me startled, and the director said it was extremely emotional. Eventually I, too, was gradually moved by Coda. My cheeks flushed, my heartbeat echoed in my ears, and I felt as if Thin Can turned me into someone secretly infatuated, controlled, and constrained by him. At first, I was passively receiving those impulses, then Thin Can started wanting even more. He said that he wanted me to catch him off guard without preparation, because that kind of equal footing could stir one's emotions. So, I seriously raised my head to look at him and asked, "Are you attracted to me?" He seemed taken aback, then suddenly laughed and replied, "You learn quickly." That made us both smile while the director, somewhat confused, asked, "Are you two acting or is it real?" Honestly, I wasn't clear if it was acting or real either. I just noticed a blush on his ears. This kind of situation started to create an atmosphere of some kind of hormone that spread throughout the set all day. As we gradually brought our state back to normal, news came about Jiang Dong. He had been in a car accident, and by the time I received the news, he had already taken off the bandages. He had many wounds, none too serious. But I heard he was injured in the head and was in the hospital wanting to find me like crazy. Reluctantly, I had to agree to take his call. On the phone, he was silent for a long time and finally spoke in a hoarse voice filled with a bit of longing. "Nan Tien, it's been so long since we met. Have you forgotten me so quickly?" I replied, "If forgetting you makes me a little happier, then it's fine." After months of detoxing, the high walls I had built suddenly collapsed at that moment. The bag fell to the ground, and I didn't bother to pick it up, just ran outside like a lunatic. Shinkin grabbed my wrist with a frown. "This scene isn't over yet. Next it's your turn to break the rules." I regained a bit of composure, but I couldn't think about anything else. My mind was screaming, "Jiang Dong is Gouda. Jiang Dong is Gouda." Ultimately, Shinkin couldn't hold me back, and I rushed straight to the hospital, running right to Jiang Dong's bedside. His injured wrist had the bandage removed. There was a deep, winding wound there, resembling Gouda closely. I lifted his shirt, revealing a small new mole on his collarbone. I sat back in the chair, struggling against Jiang Dong's bright red eyes. He said, "Nam Tien, it's been a while since we last met." Just from that one sentence, I immediately recognized that this leather bag contained Coda. He gazed at me for a long time, his eye sockets becoming moist. This was our first encounter after experiencing separation. In his eyes, there was a mix of loss and joy, but mostly overwhelming regret for having once hurt me. He commented, "Nam Tien, I had a very long dream where my name was Coda." He looked at me sadly and asked, "That's not just a dream, is it?" Of course, it wasn't a dream. The heart-wrenching feelings were too vivid, and the profound love was all too real, even if concealed in a dream. The pangs of love for Coda during those restless nights resurfaced painfully. It made no sense, yet it was something impossible to resist. I thought about my dagger, recalling the smile that reflected Coda's true intentions. "Don't forget about me, Nam Tien. Take me home, Nam Tien." After 3 long years of longing, I had finally found a stopping point. I thought to rush forward and embrace my Coda, to hold on to my destined one, despite feeling it might be inappropriate. It was hard to restrain myself. Just then the phone rang. It was Thin Can. "Miss Nam Tien, would you like to go on a date with Mr. Coda tonight?" "Mr. Coda." As I heard those words, it felt like a disruption in my mind. After a month of rehearsals, upon hearing the phrase Mr. Coda, Thin Can's previous words echoed in my head. He had said, "The person who loves you will never let you harm him." The voice on the phone continued, "Miss Nam Tien, would you like to discuss the final details with me tonight, about how to transform the theme of breaking this fate?" My mind gradually cleared, and I controlled my urge to embrace Coda. Across from me, Jiang Dong was still lamenting. "Nam Tien, that's not a dream. That's reality. The pain of the dagger at my throat is intense, but it doesn't compare to the hurt of parting." Nam Tien, I think I won't be able to meet you again. A moment of clarity was suddenly overshadowed by a suffocating feeling. Two forces relentlessly pulled at me, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't help but embrace Jiang Dong. I believed I was right. Right after that, the girl named Lam Xie burst in. She cried as she hugged Jiang Dong, burying her face in his chest. It was clear that she was terrified, telling him that she almost lost him. She expressed her regret repeatedly, seemingly realizing her true feelings when faced with life and death. She wanted to register to marry Jiang Dong. Like a bucket of cold water dumped on my head, I quickly regained my senses. I could hear Xin Qing's voice on the phone. With such blood-tinged circumstances, Miss Nam Tien, how could you endure it? I composed myself and smiled, as if something genuine was revealed. I agreed to the meeting with Xin Qing. As I left Jiang Dong's hospital room, I saw him coldly confronting Lam Xie. His eyes were fierce and his words were cruel, as if he had transformed entirely. Seizing the chance to escape from the hospital room, I couldn't avoid the waves of irrational emotions. I struggled to call Xin Qing, and when he appeared, I couldn't help but latch onto his collar. You said you wanted to discuss the details. Is there any way to consult? In his eyes a playful glint twinkled as he smiled and said, as long as you are willing, I'll follow through. Because of this, for the first time, I took the initiative to kiss him. I felt the essence of that kiss. The feelings were genuine. Love felt soft. There was no sense of breathlessness. It seems my fate has long been predetermined by someone. After the kiss, I looked up at Xin Qing. You know, right? He smiled but didn't reply. After a moment, he tucked my hair behind my ear. Your fate isn't controlled by someone else. What if it's the author? I asked calmly. If I say this world is a novel, would you believe it? Xin Qing studied me for a moment. What nonsense are you thinking? Are you teasing me and then planning to use fate to discard me? I couldn't discern any clues in his eyes, so I returned to my playful smile. I wasn't teasing you. We were just reviewing the script. I decided to end that topic, although I already had my own answer in mind. I realized I had feelings for Thin Can, but seeing Coda made those feelings emerge uncontrollably. This seemed illogical to me. It felt as if my fate was scripted by someone else. That person indicated that Coda was the key figure in my destiny. This conclusion didn't just pop into my mind. I started seeking the reasons for it right after my psychological evaluation. Suddenly, someone from my dreams appeared, and the memories from my dream became intertwined with reality, which was all very strange. Even after I thought I had kicked the habit, that scenario still resurfaced. It recreated the situation, forcing me to reflect on my deep affection for Coda, as if trying to control me again. To confirm my final suspicion, I distanced myself from Thin Can and visited the nearby temple, which often echoed in my mind. The enlightened monk seemed to deliberately wait for me to seek him out, asking if I was suffering from love. I understood his timing and the way he was trying to hypnotize me. The dreams persisted, indeed suggesting that in my past life, Coda was there. All the scenes from my dreams had actually occurred in that previous life where we loved yet opposed each other. Coda endured painful choices to give me a chance at life, while I faced bitterness and died shortly after his passing. This time of hypnosis revealed to me that Jiang Dong now embodied Coda from my previous life. All traces were calling out. Now that Coda had awakened, we were meant to continue the fate of our past. Beyond that, I noticed other things as well. These included elements that had never appeared in my dreams, presenting themselves in a vaguely mysterious manner, as if something had erased them. I tried to inquire with the monk. Are the images gradually disappearing from the original destiny that Jiang Dong and I were supposed to have? The existing setups hadn't occurred because I had overcome them, which is why they were being erased. The gaze of the high monk shifted away, and with a long sigh he said, "It cannot be said, it cannot be said." At this point, everything was already clear. Even if he didn't speak, I could guess what was happening. My life is like a novel or a play. My joys and sorrows entirely depend on the pen of the author. I am grateful for the appearance of Thin Can, as he cast doubt on the script and questioned the suffocating actions of Coda. He used aggressive actions to mock this wretched fate. Now, everything is unmistakably clear. I think I know what to do next. Tonight, Jiang Dong seemed to be enraged by something and stopped looking for me. I was finally led by the director to complete the final version of the play. The next morning, Jiang Dong appeared in front of me, bearing a wound. From a distance, it was clear that tears were rolling down his face. He stared intently at me, as if all the eloquent words were weak and ineffective, and therefore he couldn't express anything. I instructed my colleague to hand him the first ticket. Today marks the first rehearsal, and it seems intentional that we are reminded once more of that difficult path, aimed at erasing the past pain Jiang Dong caused me. When the performance began, Jiang Dong sat quietly on the stage without saying a word, his demeanor transforming into Coda. As such, Throughout the performance, I was not portraying that deep, sorrowful emotion. When Thinkin kissed me, I unexpectedly shed tears. As Thinkin painted a picture of our future, all I felt was despair, not longing. Thinkin furrowed his brows deeply, seeming to make me feel secure just like during rehearsals, guiding me to break free from fate. But each time I tried to pause, he wrinkled his brow in concern. Our colleagues were surprised to notice that our performance mirrored the initial script perfectly. All mental effort and transformation didn't manifest clearly. The whole play was pressurized to an extreme, and by the final moment, my despair finally affected Thinkin too. He embraced me from behind, intimately searching my body, trying to ignore the dagger at my side. He bit me and finally closed his eyes as he showered me with kisses, seemingly wanting to engrave this feeling deep within. During the most passionate moment, his hand rested on the gun at his waist. "Koda, do you finally want to make a move?" Bang! The gunshot rang out as I turned my hand to slice across Koda's neck. Blood gushed out violently, and Thinkin smiled, achieving his intended goal. "Nam Tien, don't forget me." In that moment, whether in a dream or in the script, I was left crying out loud. And Zhang Dong beneath the stage also had tears streaming down his face. From his gaze, I sensed assurance. Despite the sorrow, there was certainty. Seeing me cry for him, he must have felt deeply that I still loved him and believed that our bond would continue in the next life. Our destinies were intertwined from a past life. The things belonging to us in dreams made us understand each other without needing to say a word every second. The pain in my chest almost made me believe it too. If it weren't for Thinkin suddenly sitting up. After Shin-kun was about to die, he suddenly got up from his sitting position and said, "Don't forget me. Does this male lead have a sickness?" He asked after cracking his neck a little. Then he stood up and pulled me, the one crying loudly, up and said, "If you want to die, just go commit suicide yourself. How can you expect others to carry the guilt? Who is this director anyway?" This script is too. The performance was far from over, and this was the final version that the director and I had previously discussed. It was a performance within a performance. The colleagues around us were excited, while Shin whispered, spreading new ideas to the grieving audience. Exactly. How can one want to die and yet use someone else's hand? Isn't that cruel? Isn't that just deceiving ethics by pretending to have deep feelings? And still asking not to forget him, bringing him home. Is this a preparation to meet again in the next life? This is just too low. I could see Jiang Dong's face gradually turning gloomy as he carefully assessed me, wanting to read hints from my expressions. I was helping Shin-kun down while raising my head. I saw the wound on Shin-kana's neck and told him to clean it up quickly. He replied, "It's because you're infatuated with that crumpled novel and want to experience a little of the carefree love of that guy Guya. That's why I was able to coordinate with you for that performance just now. Why do you suddenly dislike me?" I took a handkerchief to wipe the medicine off his wound and said with a pout, "How would you know that the survivor is the one who suffers the most without experiencing it yourself? According to the script, doesn't the protagonist have to carry that burden all their life and then expect to make amends in the next life? I've heard that in the next life, he will still have to scold him like a dog, and after being betrayed, the male lead will regain his memories from the previous life, plus a life-saving grace. And the female lead will suffer terribly before reconciling with him." After saying this, I briefly glanced at Jiang Dong, who was clutching his chest, struggling against a restrictive corset. I knew that kind of suffering well. It tormented me deeply in my dreams for many nights. I looked at Thinkin and said, "He clearly chose this path on his own. Why wouldn't he take a risk for their love at least once? He hasn't even tried anything yet, and is ready to give up. I seriously doubt he really knows himself." Thinkin smiled at me, amused. "What do you mean by knowing oneself?" "I suspect he knows deep down that he is not a rival to the female lead. So he resorts to this underhanded tactic, which makes the female lead feel conflicted even if she wins against him." Thinkin dismissed my opinion with a laugh. That comment was purely a fabrication. However, I couldn't help but want to express the pent-up frustration I had felt all these years. Jiang Dong was curled up in his chair, visibly in pain, his shoulders slumped, and he appeared utterly hopeless. My heart ached, especially after experiencing that hypnotic episode which made me relive the pain of my past life alongside Koda. But if I wanted to break free, I had to shed a layer of skin. In the final act, Thinkin asked me, after everything, "Do you still feel my love for you is not as strong as Koda's in this script?" I realized if he was asking this, he was pondering it himself. I looked down at the stage, feeling trapped by fate, which made it hard for me to speak. However, I was unwilling to surrender. I refused to submit to someone who controlled my fate without any regard for my feelings. Therefore, I grasped the lifeline Thinkin offered, focusing solely on his eyes. Undistracted, it was there that my love resided, where my true emotions were hidden. So I boldly replied, "Destiny may be cruel, but I myself..." Feel like I've been deceiving both myself and others. I'm just playing a role. Did you really think it was all real? I was dreaming. I wouldn't take it as real. Thinkin embraced me affectionately as the music concluded, followed by a brief monologue from an actor. What is referred to as a doomed person doesn't actually exist. If they did, the brave girls would also be those who willingly accepted such fate, without any regards for personal interests. As the large screen descended, I caught a glimpse of Jong Dong slowly collapsing onto the first row's leather chair, subsequently disappearing completely behind the curtain. The first audition for this play, focused on new thoughts about women, was a success. Thin Can and I performed fluidly for more than 10 scenes. After that, I no longer saw Jong Dong. I thought about Guda, someone I once deeply loved. He must be a tough person. Eventually, he would be like me, gradually discovering the gaps in that uncontrollable feeling. As another person bound by fate, I genuinely wished for him to find freedom soon. After fully escaping from Guda, my health gradually improved. It was almost certain that I would finally break free from the constraints of my pen. During the final performance, Thin Can finally revealed his feelings to me. It wasn't on stage or during practice. In a private moment, he formally stepped out of his role and seriously asked me if I would be willing to be by his side. Again, I saw the certainty in someone else's eyes. After several well-rehearsed performances, countless intense practice sessions, and moments of sincere expression, he understood that we both had feelings for each other. He stared at me resolutely. Nam Tien, thank you for breaking through the barriers to be with me. Holding the ring before me, he looked hopeful. I didn't reach out. I raised my head and calmly asked him, is making me willingly wear your engagement ring part of your strategy? Thin Can froze in shock, the ring slipping from his hand. For someone who easily played numerous roles, it was rare to see such a display of panic. After a long moment, he slowly regained his composure and then chuckled at himself. He said, it's true that the heroine can dodge fate. How could she not see through my act? I remained silent, and honestly, I didn't realize until later that he was a schemer. Initially, I only suspected some connection between him and Koda, and seeing him repeatedly emphasize escaping fate, I thought he was my savior. It wasn't until Jong Dong awakened that I noticed the panic in his eyes. A panic unlike the fear of losing a loved one, leading me to consider a bold theory. It was merely a guess, and the certainty I had was only tentative. He had given me the worst possible answer. The room was extremely quiet. Losing a facade of intimacy looked weak and false at first glance. Thin Can lit a cigarette, the smoke causing him to squint and furrow his brow, almost as if trying to stifle his tears. I broke the silence, saying, if the scheme succeeds, what then? He looked at me through the veil of smoke for a long time, saying, I will leave and return to my world. Thin Can seemed a bit frightened. Who wouldn't want to go home? He was so close to success, yet he feared I wouldn't fully embrace him. I picked up the ring that had fallen to the floor and examined it carefully. It had our initials engraved, and he truly put thought into it. He even managed to get the size just right without knowing my measurements. I slipped the ring on my finger, and Thin Can's tears fell. He pretended to choke on the smoke, coughing hard to hide his emotions. No need for that, I smiled, wiping away the tears from my cheek. We both just need to get what we want. Thin Can looked at me, confused. If he was indeed a schemer, I thought he should have known earlier, especially since the therapist provided me with two options. One was to detox through Jong Dong. The other was moving on with someone else. From the moment I saw the script and then looked at him, I started to doubt him. If it was already handed to me, there was no principle in not using it. Thin Can seemed to understand a bit, pondered for a moment, and then burst into a hearty laugh. He took another puff of his cigarette and laughed out loud. I laughed as he lifted the wine glass beside him. I touched it with him. Cheers to our happy collaboration. My dear Nam Tien. Lots of joyful, my esteemed Koda. We laughed until tears filled our eyes. We thanked each other for the wonderful final performance that concluded perfectly. Thin Can held me tightly on stage for a long time, not wanting to let go. This time, it's truly a farewell, my esteemed Koda, don't worry. I'll be fine. I don't love either you or Jong Dong. I won't fall in love with someone predetermined by fate, nor will I be like a pawn falling for a player. Even if it means salvation, I won't willingly accept it. Shedding a layer of skin to escape fate is simply my longing to love. Love is love, with no other motives. Eventually, Thin Can released me, turned and bowed in gratitude. As for me, after enduring two deeply ingrained passive experiences, I finally gained the freedom to love.